I had given them everything: my home, my love, my constant support. Yet, my own children secretly plotted to move me into a nursing home and sell the house I built, erasing me from the life I cherished. What they didn't know was that while they schemed, I was already making choices that would rewrite our entire future. Before we jump back in, don't forget to subscribe while you're listening, and let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Now, take a breath and listen closely. This is my story. The cold truth hit me long before the official invitation never arrived. At 78, my mornings in Silver Creek were steeped in the quiet aches of old bones, each sunrise a fragile gift I often unwrapped alone. My little house on Clover Lane, the one Arthur and I built, echoed with ghosts, faded wallpaper, creaking porch steps. They all spoke of a life once shared, now a hollow space. Arthur's heart gave out a decade ago, but sometimes I still talked to him, whispering neighborhood news as if he'd just stepped out to the garden. This house, it remembered Patrick's first steps, Charlotte's laughter, their childhood squabbles. Now those vibrant echoes were swallowed by a silence only I seemed to hear. Charlotte visited monthly, always hurried, eyes fixed on her watch. Patrick came. Today was Wednesday, my baking day. Apple cinnamon pie, not for me, but for Owen, my grandson. He was the one bright spot, the only one who visited just to share tea. No ulterior motive. The click of the garden gate, his familiar, clumsy gait, announced his arrival. He'd inherited it from Arthur. "Grandma Eleanor!" Owen's warm voice filled the doorway. "Smells like specialty pie in here." "You know it, dear." I smiled, wiping flour from my hands. "Just about ready." He hugged me, and I tilted my head back to meet his gaze. "How's school?" I asked, settling him at the kitchen table. "Calculus is still a beast, but I nailed my last exam," Owen said, proudly biting into the pie. "Professor Delgado even asked me to collaborate on a research project. I knew you were sharp." I poured his tea. "Your grandfather would be so proud." Owen stared at the old oak tree. Arthur taught him to climb it at 6, despite Patrick's protests. "A boy's got to learn to fall down and get back up," Arthur always said. "Grandma, have you decided what you're wearing for Friday?" Owen's sudden question snapped me back. "Friday? What's happening Friday?" My voice caught. He froze, fork mid-air, confusion clouding his face. "The dinner? Dad and Mom's anniversary? 30 years? The Golden Willow. Didn't Dad tell you?" A cold dread seeped into my bones. 30 years of my son's marriage, a milestone. And I was hearing it from my grandson, not from Patrick. Maybe he was going to call, I offered, a pathetic attempt at normalcy. "You know your father. Always putting things off." Owen just picked at his crust, conviction absent. We talked of summer plans, a girl named Willow, but my mind circled. Why no call from Patrick? Was he celebrating without me? Owen left, promising to return. I stood at the window, watching the empty street. Mrs. Albright, my age, played with her grandchildren across the way, glowing with happiness. A hollow ache formed. The phone rang, shattering the quiet. "Patrick." "Mom, it's me. I'm calling about Friday." A flicker of warmth, he remembered. "Hello, darling. How are you?" "Isabel and I were planning a small anniversary dinner," he began, his words a cold DMN on my hopes. "But we're cancelling. Isabel caught some virus. Doctor says a week of bed rest." "Oh, that's too bad," I said, sensing the lie. "Anything I can do?" No, we have everything." Patrick rushed, too hastily. "We'll reschedule. Be sure to call you." He hung up before I could speak. The conversation left a bitter taste. Something was wrong. I sifted through old photo albums. Patrick at 5, Charlotte on her bike, Arthur teaching them to swim. When did my vibrant, loving children become so distant, so good at polite excuses? That evening I called Charlotte, asking about Isabel. She knew nothing of a virus. "Mum, I'm swamped with orders. If you want to know about Isabel, call Patrick." But you're coming to their anniversary on Friday, right? The pause on her end stretched far too long. Oh, that's what you mean? Yeah, sure. Then, a click. They were hiding something. Both of them. Thursday morning, I walked to the market. In vegetables, I saw Brenda from Charlotte's shop. Eleanor, good to see you. Still working with Charlotte? Of course. Only tomorrow's my day off. Charlotte's taking the evening off too for a family celebration. 30 years, I hear. My face remained neutral, but inside a storm gathered. The dinner wasn't cancelled. Patrick had lied. But why? Back home, I turned the deception over in my mind. A surprise? Or something far more sinister? The phone rang. Owen again. Grandma? My blue notebook? I think I left it. Let me look. I searched as Owen continued. If you find it, can you give it to Dad tomorrow? He'll pick you up, right? For dinner at the Golden Willow. My heart hammered. Owen, honey, Patrick told me dinner was cancelled. Isabel is sick. Silence. Then, Grandma? Dad called me an hour ago. Nobody cancelled anything. I slowly sank onto the couch, the air leaving my lungs. Not invited. My own son, lying to me. Grandma, are you okay? Owen's voice, a lifeline. Yes, honey, I'm fine. Just a misunderstanding. You know, my age, I get confused. A forced laugh. No need to call your dad. I'll talk to him. After he hung up, I stared at Arthur's picture. When did I become a burden? An unwanted guest? Resentment surged, but I forced it down. No tears. Time to think. I retrieved Arthur's will, the house deeds, Patrick's hints about signing over the house, Charlotte's pushing for a nursing home. I always refused, a gut feeling. Now the picture was clearer. They saw me as an obstacle. That evening, Isabel called. Her voice, too cheerful for a sick woman. Eleanor, honey, Patrick said he called you about Friday. Yes, he said you were sick and dinner was cancelled, I said, my voice steady. That's right. Terrible virus. Knocked me off my feet. Her words tumbled out, far too fast. Hope you feel better. Say hello to the others? The others? A sudden hitch in her breath. Charlotte, Owen. They're upset about the cancelled holiday, aren't they? Oh, yes, of course. But health is more important. Her feigned concern was almost laughable. Well, Isabel, I have to take my medication? I hung up. Full confirmation. They were celebrating without me, and their lies were threadbare. I pulled out the dark blue dress, unworn since Arthur's funeral. It still fit. If my children thought they could simply erase me, they were gravely mistaken. Eleanor Vance hadn't said her last word. Tomorrow night promised to be very interesting. The betrayal felt like a deep, raw wound. A lifetime of sacrifices rendered invisible by a cruel, deliberate lie. How could the very children I poured my life into so casually cast me aside? I barely slept that night. The cold bite of betrayal sharper than any joint pain. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Patrick and Isabel laughing around a celebratory table, their smiles mocking my absence. My son's lie echoing in the quiet house. Friday morning dawned grey, mirroring the heavy clouds in my heart over Silver Creek. I made tea, but it went cold, untouched. A frozen stillness had settled inside me, waiting for a decision I hadn't yet fully grasped. My gaze drifted to Arthur's picture on the mantel. He smiled, a slight tilt of his head, the way he always did when he had something profound to say. Don't let them trample on your dignity, Eleanor, I imagined him saying. You deserve better. Outside, Mrs. Albright walked her dachshund, offering a small wave as she passed. How few people truly felt happy to see me anymore. The phone rang, startling me. Patrick. Mom, good morning. How are you feeling? His voice, suspiciously cheerful, grated on my nerves. Fine, I replied, my tone deliberately even. How's Isabel? Any better? A beat of silence. I could almost hear him scrambling to recall his earlier fabrication. No, she's the same. Still lying down with a fever. Doctor says it might be a while. What a shame, I said with false sympathy. I was thinking of baking her a chicken pot pie. Nothing like home cooking for a cold. No, you don't have to. Patrick rushed, relief evident in his voice. We have everything. I just called to see if you need anything. Medication, maybe? He was checking on me, making sure I'd be safely out of the way. Thanks, son. I've got everything, I replied. I'm going to spend the evening reading. Been wanting to reread Agatha Christie for ages. Great idea. His relief was palpable. Okay, Mum. Gotta run. Call you later. He hung up. It was 10 a.m. Plenty of time before dinner. Time to trace the threads of how things had unraveled. When had I shifted from cherished mother to mere burden? Maybe it started after Arthur passed. Patrick and Charlotte's visits had dwindled. First weekly, then monthly. Charlotte, always rushing. Patrick, always asking. Mum? Isabel's birthday. Need a necklace, but money's tight. Mum? Leaky roof? Repairs needed? Reed's college ate up funds? I'd always given, not because I believed his increasingly flimsy tales, but because I craved the feeling of being needed, even if only for money. I pulled out an old notebook, filled with Patrick's loans over 15 years, a considerable sum. Money he'd never repay, and we both knew it. Charlotte was different. She didn't ask directly, but at her flower shop she'd insist I buy the most expensive bouquet. Mom, you don't want people to think I can't provide my mother with decent flowers, do you? I bought them, every time. Then there was the medication. 6 months ago, the doctor prescribed expensive blood pressure pills. Patrick had exploded. Mum, are you crazy? $400 a month? That's ruin. Find cheaper alternatives. I tried to explain other meds didn't work. Allergies. He wouldn't listen. Charlotte backed him up. Mum, you have to be more frugal. We all have expenses. This from children who upgraded phones monthly, vacationed in the Bahamas, boasted new cars. My thoughts were interrupted by the doorbell. Audrey, Owen's girlfriend, stood there, sweet and shy, a lock of red hair falling across her freckled face. Hello, Mrs. Vance. She fidgeted. Owen said he might have left his notebook. Yes, dear. Come in. I made tea while Audrey looked at photos. Is that Owen as a child? She asked, pointing to a 5-year-old with a fishing rod. Yes, his first fishing trip with his grandfather. I smiled. Caught a tiny fish, but proud as a shark. Audrey laughed, and for a moment the house felt young again. Mrs. Vance, she said softly. Owen talks about you all the time, your stories, how you taught him to bake. Tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them back. He's a good boy. The only one who... I hesitated, reluctant to speak ill of my children. He's so much like his grandfather. Audrey found the notebook under a couch cushion. As she left, she turned in the doorway. I'll see you tonight. Owen said you'd be at the Golden Willow too. I forced a strained smile. We'll see. Bit of a headache? Not sure I can go? After she left, I watched her car disappear. Sweet girl. Sincere. She had no idea. The decision came suddenly. 2:00. Dinner was 5 hours away. Plenty of time. I pulled out the dark blue dress, the low-heeled shoes from Charlotte's wedding, the pearl necklace Arthur gave me for our 30th anniversary. I wasn't staying home to pity myself. I had to see it for myself, confirm their deliberate betrayal. At 5:00, I hailed a cab. The young driver, tattooed arms, looked surprised. The Golden Willow. Really, Grandma? Prices are steep there. I know the prices, young man, I said, my voice firm. And I'm not your grandmother. He shrugged, didn't ask again. I watched the changing landscape of Silver Creek, from my quiet neighborhood to downtown's glass and concrete. The Golden Willow, nestled by the river, appeared as dusk began to fall. I asked the driver to stop a little short. Wait for me here, please. I won't be long. The Golden Willow, the most prestigious restaurant in Silver Creek. A 2-story red brick building, sprawling greenery, a terrace overlooking the river. A place for anniversaries, engagements, deals. I didn't approach the main entrance. Instead, I walked to the guest parking lot. Patrick's silver sedan, Charlotte's red SUV, Owen's old compact. They were all here. All of them. Except me. The pain of the realization hit, sharp and breathless. No mistake, no misunderstanding. They truly planned this, lied to me. My family was inside, celebrating without me. Their joy a chilling testament to their indifference. What kind of mother had I become to them, for this to be their choice? The sharp sting of betrayal, now undeniable, forced a breathless halt. I stood in the cool night air, the laughter from within the restaurant a muffled mockery. This wasn't a mistake. It was a conscious, cruel choice. My family was celebrating inside, their joy a chilling testament to their indifference. A fierce debate raged within me. Turn and walk away, preserving what little dignity remained, or push through the heavy oak doors, disrupting their carefully constructed facade. Something hardened inside me. A steel thread I hadn't known I possessed. I wasn't one to back down, not after everything. Even when Arthur died, leaving me alone with mounting medical bills, I hadn't crumbled. I'd handled it all. And I would handle this. But I wouldn't burst in like a fury. That would be too easy, too predictable. They probably expected a scene, tears, a dramatic accusation. No, I wouldn't give them that pleasure. This evening would be a lesson, one they'd never forget. "Mrs. Vance?" A voice behind me made me flinch. I turned. A tall man in his 60s stood there, a neatly trimmed grey beard, attentive grey eyes. He wore an impeccably tailored dark suit, a small gold pin shaped like a willow branch on his lapel, the golden willows symbol. Lewis? I could barely believe my eyes. Lewis Quinland, the legend himself, owner of Silver Creek's most successful restaurant. To me, he was still the shy boy from across the street who borrowed books and devoured my blueberry pies. He smiled, a slight bow. "Glad to see you remember me." "How could I forget?" I managed. "You haven't changed at all." It wasn't true. The boy had become an imposing man, time etched on his face. But his eyes, those were the same. "But you, Eleanor, have become even more beautiful," he replied, with a gallantry that felt surprisingly genuine. "Blue has always been your colour." I instinctively touched my pearl necklace, a gift from Arthur. For the first time all evening, I felt not like an angry old woman, but simply a woman. "Are you alone?" Lewis glanced towards the main hall. "I thought you were coming with your son and his family. They're celebrating their anniversary tonight, aren't they?" "Oh, so you know about that." I tried to keep my voice casual, but a lump formed in my throat. "Of course. I was personally involved in organizing their party. 30 years is a big deal. I wanted it to be perfect." He must have noticed the shift in my face, his smile fading to concern. "Is something wrong, Eleanor?" I wanted to lie, to say I was merely late, but the lies had piled too high. "I wasn't invited, Lewis," I said quietly, the words feeling heavy. "My son told me dinner was cancelled, that his wife was ill, but I found out the truth by accident." Genuine indignation flared in Lewis's eyes. There must be some mistake, a misunderstanding. Patrick couldn't possibly. He could, and he did. I interrupted, my voice steady. "I saw them through the window. They're having a wonderful time without me." Lewis frowned, his gaze hardening. "This is unacceptable," he stated, his tone brooking no objection. "Absolutely unacceptable." He offered his hand. "Let me show you out, Eleanor. The mother of the guest of honor should not stand in the hall." I hesitated. A confrontation was one thing. Dragging a stranger into it was another. "Lewis, I don't want to cause problems for your restaurant. The only problem here is a lack of respect for one's parents." He cut me off. "My restaurant is not a place where I would allow that. If I may?" He offered his hand again, and this time I took it. His touch was warm and sure, an anchor in a rising storm. "How do you want to do this?" Lewis asked as we reached the main hall doors. "Just walk in? Or I could organize something special." I paused. No scene, no yelling, no crying. They expected it. expected me to unravel, to be dismissed as hysterical. "I want to go in quietly," I said, my voice firm, like the honored guest I was supposed to be. "No announcements, no fanfare. Just show up." Lewis nodded, understanding in his eyes. The perfect choice. Elegance is always more effective than drama. He squeezed my hand lightly. "Ready?" I took a deep breath and nodded. "Ready." He opened the doors. The music, the laughter, the clinking of glasses swelled into the spacious hall. Flowers cascaded everywhere. White and cream roses, lilies, orchids, giving the impression of a blooming garden. The soft light of crystal chandeliers danced on silverware and crystal, creating an almost magical atmosphere. My family's table was at the center, round, lavishly decorated, a cake shimmering in the middle. Patrick sat at the head, in a dark grey suit I'd never seen. Isabel was beside him, in a burgundy dress and a new necklace, looking vibrant, far from sick. Charlotte, her husband, Owen, Audrey, and other unfamiliar faces filled the seats. They were caught up in Patrick's toast. Something about love and family values, oblivious to our presence. Lewis led me straight towards their table, our pace slow, deliberate. Every step a statement. I felt the curious stares of other diners, but my focus was fixed on the table ahead, on my family. Unaware their perfect illusion was about to shatter. The tension in the air thickened with each approaching step. What do you think happened to those moments of innocent childhood joy, when family meant unconditional love, not calculated exclusion? Every step felt deliberate, a slow-motion unraveling of their perfect evening. Patrick was still mid-toast, oblivious, his voice echoing with false sentiments of family values and mutual support. Owen noticed first. His eyes widened, a jolt passing through him, almost making him rise. Audrey, beside him, turned pale, tugging Owen's sleeve, her gaze fixed on me. Charlotte looked up next, her hand holding a champagne glass, freezing mid-air. One by one, their faces changed. Surprise, confusion, then a flicker of fear. Yes, fear. They feared the scene, the scandal, the public embarrassment. Finally, Patrick, sensing the sudden tension, turned. "And that's why I want to say—" His voice trailed off, seeing me. Lewis stepped forward, his voice impeccably polite, yet carrying an edge of steel. "I apologize for the intrusion, Mr. Vance. It seems your mother was a little late for the celebration. I took the liberty of escorting her to your table." Silence descended, thick and suffocating. All eyes were on us. "Mum?" Patrick finally stammered, his face as white as the tablecloth. "But you said you'd stay home." "I changed my mind," I said calmly, my voice steady, betraying none of the tremor within. "I decided I wanted to congratulate my son and daughter-in-law on 30 years of marriage. It's an important date." Lewis pulled a chair back for me, positioning it between Owen and a middle-aged woman I didn't recognize, one of Isabel's friends. "Thank you, Lewis," I said, sitting down. "You've always been so attentive. Always at your service, Eleanor." He replied with a slight bow. Then he turned to the table. "I'll have another appetizer brought in, and perhaps a bottle of our best champagne on the house, of course." With those words, he departed, leaving us in a heavy, suffocating silence. Patrick was the first to recover, his voice falsely cheerful. "Mom, what a surprise. We thought you weren't feeling well." "I feel fine," I answered, looking him straight in the eye. Isabel, on the other hand, seems to have recovered miraculously quickly. Even this morning, she had such a high fever. Isabel's face flushed, her gaze dropping. She was a terrible actress. "Yeah, I was better by lunchtime," she murmured. "Truly a miracle," I nodded. "Especially since Brenda saw you at the supermarket yesterday, perfectly healthy." Charlotte's glass clinked sharply. "Mum!" Her voice was taut. "Maybe we shouldn't—" "Don't, dear," I interrupted, turning to her. "Tell the truth. You always taught your son that lying is wrong, remember?" A waiter approached with an extra plate and champagne. As he served, everyone remained silent, smiling strainedly. The perfect family, shattered by one small truth. How many of us have been forced to witness such uncomfortable truths where a polite lie is finally exposed, revealing a deeper, colder intention? A strained silence followed, thick enough to taste, as the perfect family facade began to crack. Patrick coughed, a desperate attempt to regain control. "Well, now that we're all here," he emphasized with a faint note of irritation, "let's get on with the party." "Mum, you're just in time for dessert." He signaled a waiter, who began to cut the huge tiered cake, topped with a miniature bride and groom. It must have cost a fortune. "What a beautiful cake," I said, accepting a slice. "Must be expensive." "Not at all, Mom," Patrick said too quickly, a nervous edge to his voice. "It's not expensive at all. Just a small family party. Nothing fancy." I looked around the table, taking in the exquisite dishes, the sparkling crystal, the elaborate floral arrangements. "Yes, I can see how modest it is." I nodded, my gaze pointedly sweeping over the lavish setting. "And so many guests. And here I thought you were having financial difficulties. Isn't that why you asked me for $2,000 last month for car repairs?" If I'm not mistaken, one of Isabel's friends coughed, looking curiously at Patrick. "Mom?" He gritted through his teeth, still attempting a smile. "Can't we discuss this later? In the family circle? Aren't we in a family circle?" I asked, genuinely surprised. "Or am I no longer considered part of the family?" "I'm sorry. I guess I didn't get the memo." "Of course you're part of the family," Charlotte interjected, her voice too loud, too falsely cheerful. "It's just that we thought it would be tiring for you, at your age. The late dinner? The noise? At my age?" I repeated slowly. "Yes, of course, my age. Interesting that it didn't stop me from watching your cats last month while you went on a spa weekend, or helping Patrick with his tax returns, or lending him the $2,000 he never paid back." Silence fell again, heavy and uncomfortable. Patrick nervously fiddled with his cufflink, avoiding my gaze. Isabel was suddenly engrossed in the tablecloth pattern. "I wanted to invite you, Mum," Patrick finally said, feigning remorse. "I just didn't think you'd be comfortable. You don't like noisy gatherings, do you?" "I don't like loud gatherings," I countered, a ghost of a smile playing on my lips. "That's weird. Who threw the family Christmas dinner every year? Who organized backyard barbecues for the whole neighborhood? Who gathered guests for your father's birthday, even when he was already in the hospital?" Patrick had nothing to say. "It's not because of my age, or because I don't like loud gatherings," I continued, my voice quiet but firm. "It's that you didn't want to see me. It was easier to lie than to invite your own mother." "Mum, that's not true," Charlotte began, but I held up a hand. "I'm not finished, dear. I didn't come here to make a scene. I didn't come here to ruin your party. I came here to understand." I looked at their faces, tense, confused, scared. I wanted to understand when my children turned into people who could lie to their own mother's face, who could exclude her from a family celebration like some inconvenient obligation. Owen, head bowed, looked up. "Grandma?" he whispered. "I didn't realize they hadn't invited you. I swear I thought you were just running late. It's strange," Lewis went on nonchalantly. "I thought she said you told her that you had cancelled the dinner because of your wife's illness." Isabel made a strange sound, a half cough, half sob. Charlotte stared at her plate as if it held the answers to all the universe's questions. "Apparently there was some kind of misunderstanding," Patrick stammered, his face flushed. "Apparently," Lewis agreed dryly. "Well, the important thing is that we're all here now. Enjoy the evening." He squeezed my hand again and stepped away, leaving us in an even more tense silence than before. Patrick was the first to break it. "Mum, I can explain," he began. "Isabel and I wanted to spend this evening in a small circle. A small circle of 15 people?" I clarified, looking around the table. I mean, without the older generation. He continued awkwardly. There's no Isabel's parents? No. You're lying, I said calmly. Lying again? Isabel's parents died 5 years ago, and you know it. I was at both funerals. And your brother-in-law's parents? I nodded toward Charlotte's husband. I can see them at that table over there. They waved at me as I entered. Patrick paled even more, if that was possible. Mom, Charlotte intervened, her voice tight. We didn't mean to offend you. We just thought you might be uncomfortable. You've been complaining about your health lately. And we all complain about our health sometimes, dear, I said. But usually the people closest to us ask how we're feeling, not decide for us. I sipped my champagne. It was excellent, dry, with light notes of citrus and vanilla. You know what the saddest part is? I continued, looking at my children. It's not that you didn't invite me. It's that you lied instead of honestly saying, Mum, we want to spend this evening without you. You made up a story about being sick, made me worry about Isabel's health, calling, offering to help. I shook my head. I'd always taught you to be honest, even when the truth is unpleasant, even when it might upset someone, because lies destroy trust. And without trust, there's no family. Patrick's voice trembled. Mum, you just didn't want your old mother to ruin your party. I finished for him. I understand. I really do. But you know what? You could have just told me that. I would have understood. Maybe I would have been upset, but I would have understood. Because I've always respected your right to make decisions, even when I didn't agree with them. I finished my champagne and put my glass on the table. But you chose to lie instead. And now that I'm sitting here, I see more than just those lies. I see all the times you've lied to me over the years. When you asked for money for emergencies and spent it on entertainment. When you said you couldn't visit me because of important business and you went out of town for the weekend. Patrick tried to say something, but I stopped him with a gesture. I don't want to hear excuses, son. I'm just curious. When did you stop respecting your mother? The question hung in the air. A silent judgment. Patrick looked at me with the expression of a man caught red-handed. Isabel nervously fidgeted with her napkin, avoiding my gaze. Charlotte looked like she was ready to fall through the ground. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where the truth, finally spoken, changed everything? Not just for the moment, but for all the memories that came before it. Mum, let's not make a scene. We can talk about this later, in a more appropriate setting. Patrick's voice was a strained whisper, desperate to control the chaos he'd unleashed. He meant, without witnesses. And when is the time and place, Patrick? I asked softly, a cold resolve settling in my soul. When you stop by for 5 minutes to ask for money? Or when Charlotte glances at her watch during tea? Charlotte flinched. It's not fair, Mother. I've got the shop. Everyone has things to do, dear, I replied, my voice calm. But people make time for those they love. Owen squirmed, his girlfriend Audrey wide-eyed, clearly feeling out of place. No, stay. I gently touched Audrey's arm. This has nothing to do with you. I looked directly at Patrick and Charlotte. I just want you to know that I understand. I realize that I've been a burden to you, an uncomfortable reminder that we're all getting older. Patrick tried to object, but I shook my head, cutting him off. I've been silent for a long time. Now, it's my turn. I know you talk about me behind my back. Mrs. Dawson, your neighbour, I nodded toward Patrick and Isabel, happened to mention it when we met at the pharmacy. She was very concerned when she heard you say that I was starting to lose my mind. Isabel turned pale. Eleanor, it wasn't that. We're just worried. Don't bother, dear. I interrupted gently. I know the truth. Just like I know that you and Patrick have already been looking at a nursing home for me. Sunny Hills, isn't it? The administrator there is an old high school friend of yours, if I'm not mistaken. Patrick was chalk white now, throwing a quick glance at Isabel, as if asking how I could have known. It was just in case, he muttered. We wanted to be ready in case you needed help. Without my knowledge, I finished for him. Without a single conversation with me about my wishes, you decided everything for me, as if I was no longer capable of making decisions for myself. I turned to Charlotte, my gaze unwavering. And don't think I don't know about your conversations with the realtor about my house, about how it might be sold when I'm gone, or when I move to a place where I'll be taken care of. Charlotte flushed crimson. Mum, I was just wondering about the prices on the real estate market. Of course you were. I nodded, the sarcasm biting. And the fact that the realtor was looking at my house while I was at the doctor's office was just a coincidence? There was a dead silence at the table. Even the outside guests, those I didn't know, seemed to hold their breath. Where did you? Patrick started, then trailed off. How do I know? I finished for him, pulling a plain white envelope from my purse. It wasn't remarkable, but my children stared at it like it was a ticking bomb. I have eyes and ears, son, and neighbours who, unlike my children, care about me. Mrs. Albright saw the realtor walking around the house, taking pictures. She called me because she was worried. I placed the envelope on the table. You know, the sad thing is that you think I'm a helpless old woman who can't take care of herself. You think I don't see your neglect. I don't notice how you avoid my calls. I don't realize that your infrequent visits are more of an obligation than a desire. Mom, it's not like that. Charlotte tried to take my hand, but I pulled away. It's exactly like that, dear. And I've wondered why for a long time. Why do my children, whom I raised with love, to whom I gave everything I could, treat me like a burden? I paused, letting the weight of the question settle. And I realized it was the house. Have you ever had that moment when the pieces of a painful truth finally click into place, revealing a long-hidden pattern of betrayal? The house, I repeated, watching Patrick and Charlotte's faces twist in confusion. Our family home, the one you were so eager to inherit. I opened the plain white envelope, spreading documents across the table. You both just waited for me to die, or become helpless enough to stick me in Sunny Hills, then take over. Mum, what are you talking about? Patrick stammered, his eyes wide. I sold it, I stated, placing the deed on the table. A chilling silence fell. Patrick froze, glass in hand. Charlotte made a small, strangled sound. Sold it? You couldn't. But I did, I affirmed calmly. 3 days ago, Mr. Jenkins, my lawyer, finalized everything. A lovely young couple bought it. Charlotte looked close to tears. But where will you live? A small apartment near the library, don't worry. As for the money from the sale, Patrick leaned forward, raw greed glinting in his eyes. I donated it to build a new wing for the city library. It will bear your father's name. George always loved books, their faces contorted. Shock, disbelief, then pure, undisguised fury. You... what? Patrick stuttered. $500,000? You just gave it away? You already have a future, honey, I countered, glancing at Owen, who sat with his head bowed, visibly upset by the unfolding scene, yet not about the money itself. I've thought about my future, though. I laid down a third document. I changed the will. Everything I have left, my personal savings, jewelry, belongings, I'm leaving to Owen. Owen looked up, tears welling in his eyes. Grandmother, I don't want... I know, sweetheart, I said softly, squeezing his hand. That's exactly why you're getting it. I turned back to the others, their perfect smiles shattered. You thought I didn't notice your neglect? How you avoided my calls? My supposed dementia? Isabel flushed. We were worried, Eleanor. Worry looks different, dear, I retorted. It doesn't involve lying about illnesses, flying to the Bahamas, or plotting my future without me. Patrick found his voice, a desperate whisper. Mom, this is crazy. You can't just take everything away from us. Years of neglect, lies, talking behind my back. Is that a misunderstanding? I challenged, my voice cold, calm. I won't spoil your holiday with my presence anymore. I've said all I have to say. I rose, gathering my purse. "You're leaving?" Charlotte stammered. "What about the money?" "It's gone, dear." I finished for her. "Not the house, not the savings you've been waiting for. There's only me, your mother, who has finally decided to live for herself." Leaving them stunned, caught in the bitter aftermath of their own deceit, felt like shedding a lifetime of unspoken burdens. What do you do when the very people you lived for finally make you realize you need to live for yourself? Stepping from the restaurant, shedding a lifetime of burdens, I found Lewis waiting. "Leaving, Eleanor?" he asked. "Yes, Lewis. Time to go home." Tense atmosphere at your table. "Family matters. Sometimes truth is bitter," he observed. "Like bitter medicine?" "Exactly," I agreed. His offer, "My door is always open," felt like an anchor. My heart, heavy yet unburdened, finally left behind the life others had dictated. 3 months later, sunlight streamed into my new apartment, revealing the city library across the street, my second home. This bright, smaller space offered a freedom previously unknown. Patrick's calls persisted. 4 this week. I let them ring. After that night, their anger, then failed attempts at ingratiation, were predictable. Patrick's flowers, Charlotte's daily calls, Isabel's apologies, all ceased when I confirmed the donation was final. The mask of false concern dropped, revealing their true, calculating selves. Owen's call, however, brought genuine warmth. "Grandma, library wing opening today. I'll pick you up." The George Vance Wing, a tribute to Arthur, where children would discover books. 3 times a week, volunteering in the children's department gave me purpose. Kids saw me as a source of kindness, not a burden. My memories of Patrick and Charlotte no longer brought acute pain. I accepted them as they were, loving them with detached clarity. Arthur's picture on my dresser. "Would you approve, Arthur?" I whispered. "You are living for yourself at last, Eleanor." "Of course I approve." Owen arrived, looking sharp. "Grandma, you look amazing. Ready for your finest hour?" "Ready," I affirmed. At the library, Patrick and Isabel were in the crowd, waving awkwardly. I moved past them to my front row seat. Lewis Quinlan offered a subtle smile. With him, I felt like a woman of substance. Miss Applegate announced me. I walked onto the stage, calm. "This wing is for my husband, Arthur Vance. He loved his family and books." I spoke directly to the crowd, then to Patrick and Isabel. Books open doors. They teach empathy, thought, kindness. Sometimes we forget simple truths, caught in material pursuits. But it's never too late to remember. Never too late to change your life. Applause erupted. Patrick and Isabel approached. "Mom, impressive. Dad would be proud." "Yes, he'd be proud," I agreed, "especially of Owen's loyalty." Patrick flinched. "Can we fix it? Start over?" "Maybe," I nodded. "But trust, Patrick, is earned." Lewis approached, a welcome reprieve. "Eleanor, Miss Applegate needs you." He led me to a quiet garden corner. Just an escape from a tense conversation. He confessed. "Thank you, Lewis. They're my kids, no matter what. Family is complicated," he acknowledged, "but trust is earned." Then, a quiet invitation. "Next weekend, King Lear at the Town Theatre? Would you keep me company?" A warmth stirred. "I'd love to," I heard myself say. Lewis brightened. "Great. Dinner before." "Wonderful." I smiled, a new excitement blooming. Later, Owen drove me home. "Mr. Quinlan, you two seem to get along." He grinned. "I thought there was something between you." "Don't be silly." I chuckled. "At my age, romance? Why not?" Owen countered. "Age is no barrier to happiness." His words lingered. Hadn't I proven life could begin again? Charlotte's car was parked outside. She rose, holding a personally made bouquet. "Mommy, I made it." "Thank you, dear. Come in." Inside my new apartment, Charlotte scanned the bright space. "It's very nice. Cozy." "Thank you." Over tea, Charlotte nervously began. "Mum, I owe you an apology. For that night. For all these years. I did wrong." Her eyes held sincerity. "I forgot you're not just a mum. You're a person, with your own feelings, desires, plans. Thank you for those words, Charlotte. They mean a lot. I'm not asking for forgiveness right away, she said. Trust doesn't rebuild quickly, but I want to try, to be a real part of your life again. I saw the little girl she once was. I wish there was, I said. But you're right. Trust must be rebuilt gradually, day by day. We talked into the evening, a real conversation. When Charlotte left, promising to return, I stood at the window, watching the city lights. My new life had truly begun. A life where I was not just a mother, a grandmother, a widow, but above all, myself. Eleanor Vance, a woman finally choosing her own path. The journey of reclaiming oneself is rarely easy, but the freedom found at the end is a priceless reward. Have you ever had to draw a boundary with those closest to you to protect your own peace and dignity? Share your stories below. Your voice matters. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more tales of resilience and